Hi, everyone, and welcome back or to Climate Conversations. My name is Kathy Yang, and I'm a junior in high school. Today, I'm joined by Rachel Blackburn, the Southern Appalachians Program Coordinator of the National Forest Foundation. Um, Rachel mainly specializes on watersheds and red spruce restoration, and she has previously worked with a land trust known as Conserving Carolina and also has worked in fields of environmental litigation and law. Is there anything else you would like to add to your bio?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it. I'm based out of Asheville, North Carolina, and that's my hometown. So if any of y'all are local to there and want to hit me up, come find me.
So let's just talk about your work at like National Forest Foundation. What inspired your interest in this organization and what ultimately led you to join their team?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, so before I worked at NFF, I was working at like you said at a land trust. So I was starting to understand what it means to conserve private lands that are held by an individual, what that means when they want to make decisions to that benefit the ecosystem or harm the ecosystem. I think what's funny about National Forest Foundation is I had never heard of them before the job opened, before I saw the job listing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was just checking the job boards one day. I'm always trying to help my friends find jobs, and so I was like, National Forest Foundation, what's this? And when I realized it was an opportunity to work on public lands and benefit our public lands, I thought that was really unique and not something I'd seen before. And then also it really provided the opportunity to work in a larger geography and with a broader variety of types of projects. So
Mm-hmm.
that looked really attractive to me, and so that's why I joined specifically NFF. But I live in, like I said, I live in Asheville, and if you look at a map of our public lands, we're pretty much surrounded on three sides by the Pisgah National Forest. And then if you keep going west, you hit the Nantahala National Forest and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So we're just a very we're an area that's very rich in public lands, and that was really inspiring. Like these are the landscapes that I've grown up around and appreciated since I was a little kid. And here's the perfect opportunity to give back and to make a career out of it. So I jumped on it, and I feel so lucky that NFF chose me for this role. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been here doing this particular job for about 2 years now, and a lot has changed in 2 years, but
Oh,
still very inspired and still happy to be part of the team.
wow. It's like your like natural surroundings and where you grew up definitely played a role in you choosing this job. So you've been working on like coordinating projects and being part of the projects for the past 2 years. I read online and watched some videos about your red spruce restoration. So can you talk a bit about why red spruce trees are so significant to our ecosystem, specifically the Appalachian Mountains, and how NFF is working to restore these trees?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start with a quick qualifier because I think for simplicity's sake, everyone centers around the red spruce. If you want to be really technical about it, we're working in the spruce fir ecosystem. And a lot of times the Fraser fir, they get a little less attention, mainly because there is something called a woolly adelgid, which is a pest that attacks the Fraser fir. And we haven't quite figured out, like we, the scientific community, the conservation community, haven't quite figured out what to do about that adelgid. The spruce aren't affected by the adelgid, which is great. So there's been a lot of emphasis on trying to work with spruce and restoring spruce, and then keeping the fir kind of on the left, on the side, and not forgetting about it. But yeah, so working in this spruce fir forest is Um, I would say NSF's role really got jump started by the 2022 Capitol Christmas Tree campaign, which I don't know if you're aware of this program. It runs annually, but once a year, a Christmas tree is selected off of one of our national forests around the country. And the tree goes on tour, it educates people about national forests, and then it's set up at the lawn of the White House and decorated with
Oh.
with holiday ornaments and that type of thing. So in 2022, the selection committee picked a red spruce out of, I think it was the Pisgah National Forest, and that reinvigorated this conversation around what red spruce are, why their ecosystems matter. So there'd been a little bit of this kind of genesis that started before I came into NSF, and it was the forest. It was really a big partnership. So the Forest Service was involved, Fish and Wildlife Service was involved because there's endangered species that live in the ecosystem, and all the different North Carolina state parks, our local land trust community. Everyone started to get reinvigorated by this Capitol Christmas tree to talk about red spruce and why it mattered. And really, I think it comes down to two main reasons. One is these are relic, I'm not sure, they're remnant ecosystems. So they really aren't seeing a resurgence, like they're not getting any bigger or naturally regenerating on their own. These are sort of left over from our last ice age, from our last glacial period. That being said, just because they're remnant doesn't mean they're not significant. And the reason they're significant is because they play a really powerful role in regulating our climate and regulating our watersheds. So the Sky Islands, just because of where they sit topographically at the very top of the mountains, there are a lot of the times they're the first forest to receive rainfall. They're the headwaters. They get the cleanest water, and everything runs downhill from the Sky Islands. So there's an opportunity when the soils are the way they're supposed to be up there. They're very spongy. And there's a lot of moss that grows up there. So if you just think about the water being able to soak in really well and then trickle very slowly down the mountain. These ecosystems are super important to keep our watersheds healthy, but then they also act in that really nice thermal capacity. So they help keep temperatures nice and cool and nice and low. So as you can imagine, we've had record-breaking heat every summer for the last however many summers. And we're probably going to keep breaking records as we move forward. So keeping those nice little, we could think of them as like little window AC units or something at the top of our mountains, keeping those functioning is really, I think, to our benefit if we like enjoying going outside in the summertime and not having a heat stroke. And, if we like living, here in Western North Carolina, we're really blessed to have some of the cleanest, we have very clean water, and that doesn't happen by accident. So if you like enjoying clean water, if you like, enjoying cool air, and then also, if this matters to me, I can't say it matters to everybody else, but if you ever find yourself in a spruce fir forest, it is a different, recreation experience. It's a different, it feels different than being in a typical deciduous forest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it has this not to get all woo-woo, but it just has this kind of magic feel to it. It's and maybe if you are always living in an alpine area, then you're like, oh, I've seen this before. But, for us here in Western North Carolina, most of our forests are hardwoods. And so we get that really beautiful spread of color in the fall. But those really pretty areas that are coniferous and evergreen, going up there in the summer is, it's 10 degrees cooler and it's quiet. And They have, you're going to think I'm silly. They have
No,
different
no, no.
squirrels up there.
Oh,
They have these like, I don't know what they're called. They're like red and smaller than our regular squirrels. Anyway, it just feels like you've been kind of transported
wow.
into a
I would
new
love
world.
to visit someday.
Yeah, please come down if you ever need a guide. I can hook you up.
Thank you. Okay. Wow, it sounds like different from deciduous forest. I guess they have their own kind of like magic in their
Hmm.
special way.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, you guys do so much to help our forests. And how can students, people of all ages, high schoolers like me, get involved with National Forest Foundation to make an impact?
Perfect. That's a great question. I'll start by saying I know NSF, the typical answer you're always going to hear is volunteering. I
Mm.
don't know that NSF has in every area of the country for your viewers. I don't know if we'll always have a volunteer program that you can directly sign up for, but we do have some. So I'd say, keep an eye out for our volunteer events if that interests you. But really, I think the biggest thing that an average person can do that's free and that really helps our mission
Mhm.
is to know what your local, like, figure out which is your local national forest. Being able to start to kind of connect and make a relationship with your local, it doesn't have to be like one, it could be many.
Mhm.
And kind of understanding the context and appreciating how it got to be where it is. Um, I don't know if you know this, but most of the national forests that exist on the East Coast were purchased by the federal government through the Weeks Act, rather than set aside, like in sort of, or I don't know if reserved is the right word, but like a lot of the Western forests, like they were just kind of written as a decree, like we're setting this aside. It's always going to be owned by the federal government. Whereas on the East Coast, everything was privately owned. And then when the Weeks Act was passed, it authorized the federal government to make land purchases.
Oh,
So one of the first tract of land that was ever purchased under the Weeks Act is here in Western North Carolina. And the Pisgah National Forest is one of the first forests that got set up. Um, so, just like a little bit of history and understanding. I think maybe I'm a nerd, but I think sometimes we just think things got there by accident, and understanding like why things are the way they are can really empower people to then take the next step of like, well, how do I want to respond to that? Um, so if helping your friends understand like what is the Forest Service, why is it different than the Park Service?
mhm.
What are they required to do for us as a land agency? What are some of their challenges right now? I can tell you some of their challenges. Um, and I think in it, if you want to be active, there's things you can do like volunteering, getting your hands dirty. I will say, like NFF partners, we do a lot of partnerships with local organizations. For example, here in the Western North Carolina area, we helped we did some leading of volunteers for Pisgah Project Day, which
Mhm.
was through the Pisgah Conservancy. And the Pisgah Conservancy is sort of analogous to National Forest Foundation in that they work on the Pisgah National Forest, whereas National Forest Foundation works across the entire country as National
Mhm.
Forest. So you could find, there's probably a group in your national forest when you know which one it is. It might be called a friends group, Friends of Nantahala National Forest or Friends of Great Smoky Mountains. And it's very likely that your smaller organizations are going to be able to organize volunteers if you're interested in volunteering. Um, I will say, but back to NSF, we are really trying to get our social media off the ground. So if you're the type of person who is active online and you like to share stuff, we would always love it if you want to share our social media messaging. And then I will say, just last thing is NFF, as the congressionally chartered partner of the Forest Service, we are not an advocacy organization. But just because we don't get in front of our elected representatives and we don't lobby or advocate doesn't mean that a private citizen can't. And so if you learn some of the challenges that the agency is facing, and it moves you to participate in that advocacy process, then I think that all comes back to help the mission of what we're doing here, which is to support the Forest Service, the health of the forest, and the visitor experience, the user experience on the forest as well.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It seems that like um spreading the word and getting educated is a very big part of this. It's like, I don't know, like a starting point, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, social media I think is growing even more prominent these days. So I
I know it's hard, like everyone's wallet is really stretched. So of course, donate if you can donate. But,
Mhm.
I think if people don't have money, I don't want them to feel like, oh, I can't make an impact. I'm just going to stop there.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, you can, like you said, do hands-on work and I guess getting basic knowledge, knowing the area around you is very important.
right, right. And I'm going to get just side note there.
No, 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 you're
In
good.
a real roundabout way, your volunteer work, depending on which organization you're volunteering with, for that organization, sometimes volunteer work is just as valuable as cash. And I mean that like literally, in the sense that some nonprofits will apply for a grant, and a grant will ask for something called match. And match is a roundabout way of saying, what's this organization's skin in the game?
Mhm.
It's like a cost share. So the idea would be, if the grant is going to give the organization $1,000, they want to see, let's say if it's a 50-50 match. So if they're going to give $1,000 to an organization, that organization has to find another 1,000 to put with the donation.
Mhm.
Sometimes that that 1,000 that the organization brings to the table doesn't have to be a check. It doesn't have to be cash. Like, if they can get together, I can't do math off the top of my head, whatever 1,000 is divided by 30, the value of a volunteer hour, it will change over time. I think it's around $30 right now.
Yeah.
So let's just say you got 10 volunteers together for 1 hour of volunteering. The nonprofit, in my little hypothetical that I just laid out, would it be able to show $300 of match to, if they're trying to do that? So if you and a group of 9 friends don't have $30 each to contribute, but if you all have an hour, that's as good as a $300 donation to
Oh, okay.
you see what I'm sort of
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's
So
cool.
don't undervalue a volunteer hour here and there, especially because I know you're in high school. We had like an honors society when I was in high school, and you were required to do a certain
Yeah.
number of volunteer hours. I don't know if you guys have that, but
Yeah, yeah. National Honor Society. Yeah.
perfect. Okay, it's a national program. Yeah. So highly recommend.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Wow, that's a great suggestion. Like,
You are.
you don't have to like focus on money things. Like,
Right.
volunteer is very important too.
Yeah, super, super important.
Um, so I guess one last question. Where do you see this foundation going in the future? Are there any projects to look out for? How are you guys like overcoming some challenges, I guess, like you talked about?
Oh yeah. Ooh, that's the $1 million question. That's a big question. So NSF right now, we're going through our next round of strategic planning, which is something most nonprofits will do. It's an exercise, kind of like we all do individually. Where do I see myself in 5 years? Like,
Hmm.
so we're at the next like iteration of that, and it seems like we've really nailed down our areas of focus, and we will be really honing in on restoring healthy forests and watersheds, in addressing the huge backlog of maintenance on recreation facilities, and then also mitigating the risk of wildfire in the urban and rural community. So those are kind of our 3 pillars of focus, but they're very broad, and they can become very specific. You know, I think stepping back a little bit further, our relationship to the agency as the congressionally designated nonprofit partner of the United States Forest Service, I'm sure you can imagine the Forest Service is undergoing an intense amount, I mean, just like complete overhaul of their structure, processes, capacity. We have never, I think, been more needed at this time to help make up for a lack of funding and to help make up big time for a lack of capacity. And when I say capacity, I just mean like imagine if you had a group project and you only had 2 people in your group, but really you needed to do the project, well, you need 4 people in your group. And your teacher was like, well, just deal with it anyway. Like, you know, like you're like, but I can't do this. I need 2 more people, you know. So the idea is they're just consistently being asked to do more with less. And where they are limited, we are only limited by the scale of how many donations we can bring. Like there's no entity telling us your staff has to be this big or you're only allowed to work on these projects. And so we're allowed to have a bit more flexibility with how we meet the agency's needs. And now that the agency has bigger and like more intense needs, they're really leaning on us to help fulfill their mission. And I think this is more of a local example here, but we're coming up really close on the anniversary of Hurricane Helene. And when that hurricane came through last year, Congress met afterwards and passed a funding package that put a lot of money in the Forest Service's bank accounts to start working on recovery, you know, fix these roads, clear away this down debris, repair this bathroom that got blown apart. The Forest Service, like, I don't know if you can imagine this, like they have more money than they have people in chairs to spend the money sometimes. And so we're able, not just NSF, but other partners, other nonprofit partners are able to come to the table and help provide some of that capacity. So we'll enter into an agreement with the Forest Service and it'll set up really, really clear sideboards and it'll say, okay, your budget is $500,000. NFF is going to hire the contractor to fix this bridge within 5 years. And what that does is that allows the Forest Service to kind of know that the project is going to get taken care of, know that that money will get used, because a lot of money is very use it or lose it with the federal government. So if that money sat with the Forest Service, but it didn't get spent, we could see in a year or two it get clawed back or taken away. So there's sort of a sense of urgency, like, okay, we have all this money, we have a lot of needs, you know, we need to figure out how to spend it, but we have to be creative with our resources because we don't have everything we need to get the work accomplished. So that's you know, we're just increasingly needed, and I would say, like, here in the Southern Appalachians, our projects are really going to focus on hurricane recovery. One thing, though, that I think is very interesting as kind of a broader NFF project or initiative is that we're really reshaping and refining our reforestation program. And one of our first pilot areas where we're testing out a new model is in the Umpqua National Forest, where we've hired a reforestation coordinator. Her name's Anna. I think it's Anna. Sometimes it's Anna. I think it's Anna. But anyways, the idea is to have, you know, staff who are really steeped in forestry experience and who understand how to manage a forest for its succession over time. And so, you know, we're not just we're putting boots on the ground, someone with, you know, technical expertise on reforestation, then we're also supporting the entire process that goes around putting trees in the ground, which starts with collecting seeds, a lot of cone, a lot of cone collection, that type of thing. And then the seeds have to be planted and grown in a nursery. So we have some nurseries that we've supported. And then obviously the planting stage, which is not as easy as it sounds. There's a lot of site prep that goes into planting. And then monitoring the trees afterwards to see, like, how did we do? What was our mortality? What was our success? So in the Umpqua, that reforestation work is happening kind of in a post-wildfire setting. But what's kind of cool is we're going to see a new chapter. Like, that was sort of a pilot version of this model. And now we're going to have another reforestation coordinator set up in the Pisgah to help with the reforestation after Hurricane Helene. So we'll be working on about 16,000 acres of national forest here in this. I won't be, but I'll have a new counterpart sitting next to me, maybe this time next year. And I think that that's really, really, really exciting. The Forest Service, as you know, is partially a timber management agency, and so there are lots of spaces where wood has been cut, not just from a disaster like a wildfire or a hurricane, but there's just lots of places where the Forest Service would like a little bit more help with not just the cutting trees part, but like all of the part that goes after that, putting the forest back into place. And so I'm really looking forward to that chapter for us. I think the agency is looking at actually picking species that are the right tree to grow in this area, which is something that they didn't necessarily care about in like the 70s. They just picked what was fast growing and could be harvested quickly. So, it's like some people are like, oh, that clear cut, it's so hard to look at. And I'm like, well, what if I told you it was a clear cut of trees that aren't ecologically appropriate for this area? And we're going to replace them with like a mix and a diversity of species that are actually native to this area. So, it's really interesting, and it's really an exciting time to despite all the challenges, like I still have a lot of hope and optimism. And I will say, like, not just the people who work in NFF are amazing to work with, but the people who work in the Forest Service, if you get, I will go back to like, what's something you can do. If you have the chance to meet like your local wildlife biologist or your local district ranger, or, you probably won't meet your forest supervisor, but, if you can meet anybody who works for the Forest Service and just kind of get to know them as a human being, it's like, these are some of the most dedicated and knowledgeable people in their fields. And I think it's really inspiring. Like, I wish that I had met these people when I was in high school, sort of, to speak. Like, they're my role models now in that. And I think that they are just, again, they could be such good role models to young people too. Younger people. I'm still young, but you know what I mean.
I think you're a great role model too. Like all the projects you talked about sounds really exciting. Like a lot to look forward to. It's actually very like, when people say like, oh, just go like plant a tree, it's not that simple. Like you guys have to look into logistics, models, and like you said, mortality and success rates. It's just a lot, but the work you guys do is just like super inspiring, especially for kids like me. Like I'm trying to go into perhaps this career in the future, and I think it's awesome what you guys are doing.
Oh, thank you. Well, I want to continue to serve as a source of inspiration and just encouragement. I didn't know that this was what I wanted to do when I was in high school, and I think that that's awesome that you're already thinking about like what would a happy career look like for me. So I just want to personally extend, if you have any questions, or as you're moving through your education, like please don't be a stranger. This is it can be kind of intimidating when you're not like on the inside of the business or whatever, but we're really nice. Like these are the nicest people ever. They're nothing to be afraid of. And if anything, I just wish I'd found them sooner.
Mhm.
But we do have through our Conservation Connect program, NFF has a fellows program, which we take on grad students for usually it's about 360-hour length terms. I had a fellow last year who was with me for a double term put together, so it was about 1,000 hours. Um, anyway, I would highly recommend that. It might be a while till you're ready for it, but keep us in mind, or just these similar types of like internship, fellowship programs. Um, there's tons of like here locally we have something called a River Rangers program, which is like a summer internship. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you
Yeah.
for all the advice. Thank you to Rachel for joining Climate Conversations today. I really enjoyed this conversation. You had a lot of insightful things. I learned a lot about National Forest Foundation. So thank you so much.